What's up, everybody? This is Dave from Brograph, continuing the Brograph iDesign mashup by introducing you to Octane Jesus himself, who is kind of a split Brograph iDesign dude because he's on our podcast all the time and he's on iDesign all the time, which is pretty sweet. David Ariew.
I just like to hang out with my buddies, and I don't have any major allegiances. I just hang out and Jesus out, and that's it. And we're exhausted. It's like, I can't believe it's just day 2. Feels like day 50 something, and we're just friggin' out of it right now.
We had a really good podcast last night with a lot of people. That was a lot of fun. And let's rap a little bit. Let's not actually rap, but let's talk about Octane a little bit, because Octane 4 is coming out. Are you excited about that? Well, it's out, but not for Cinema 4D yet.
Yeah, I'm extremely excited. Like, the speed increases with the geometry. Like, it's like 60 frames per second. I did a little test, and my scene that had all those volumetrics went from like 1:30 to 7 seconds or something like that. So just that alone is worth the price of admission. And then when you add that to like the fact that they made it free, blows my mind. Like, free up to 2 GPUs. So whatever was subscription before, you're getting that for free. So that's insane. And then the subscription version for $20 a month, 20 GPUs and 2 render nodes. So like, that's already all the GPUs you could ever want in the whole world. And then the enterprise version, which I've got 3 of those, I guess now, which means I can have 200 GPUs per enterprise version. So I'm going to be packing 600 GPUs, bro.
It's never enough, though.
No, it's never enough. And then like the AI, so the AI denoiser, is amazing because it, like 50 to 100 samples, your renders will clean up for the most part. There's some scenes I've seen a little bit of, little splotchiness, but on the whole it's really good. So you just increase the samples a little bit more and it'll super clean up. And that's amazing too, for even if it's not perfectly, like, say it doesn't even work perfectly, but rather than sending your clients like a super grainy fast pass, you can send them a really clean, fast pass, right? So even if it's not like the best thing since sliced bread, it's still going to be amazing for that really fast back and forth art direction until you get your final and do the final render, and that may take a little bit longer. But yeah, so the AI denoiser is amazing, and then the AI light feature too is freaking incredible. So like, my understanding is that unbiased renderers have issues with really small point lights, right? Where, I don't know, Jay Roth like explained this to me way better. Some of this is a little over my head, but there's like, the smaller your light is, the more flickering there can be and just inconsistencies. So and also I've noticed, like, the closer to your light source, the more intense the noise gets, especially with that volumetric stuff. But so if you've got a lot of little point lights in a dark scene, with, then Octane sometimes has issues, but any unbiased renderer would have those issues. And so that's where Redshift is currently winning. But with this feature they've got, that's called AI Light, it basically tracks your light sources. So yeah, those clean up much faster. So we're using AI, combining those 2 AI systems, where it's like understanding more and more the different light setups and understanding more and more the different types of scenes that they've got. So you pipe those 2 systems together and you've got really clean renders, super crazy fast, and we're approaching like real time. It's almost like game engine technology. It's like they're trying to merge in Brigade, which is pretty freaking insane. So all that together, and then there's like an AI geometry mode too, right? So there's 3 new AI modes. I don't totally remember. Can you speak on the
I don't know yet, because it's one of those things where I played with it a little bit, but I'm not too familiar with Standalone, and I'm sure Ahmed is furiously working to get Cinema 4D out there.
Yeah, I mean, last time somebody said that it was like 6 weeks from Standalone release to plugin release, and it's already been 2 or 3, so hopefully, maybe another 3 weeks we'll have it in our hands. I don't know.
Well, this is a new architecture, so maybe it's going to take a little bit longer.
Yeah, and then the other thing that I didn't mention is the out-of-core geometry, which was a major thing that, Redshift had above Octane, but now there are no limits on your scene size because all of that can get, it's an overflow pipe into the VRAM. So that's pretty freaking cool too. I don't usually hit the scene scale limits, maybe when I'm like doing dead mouse and accidentally put like 30 million polygons in there or something.
Whoops.
Yeah, so in general, I don't hit those limits, especially with the 1080 Ti's, but sometimes with the volumetric stuff I do. That's going to be super awesome to not have that cap on scene scale. It'll slow down a little bit, but not much. I think maybe like 20%, maybe a little more. Depends. We'll have to actually test it and see. And then, yeah, I forget what else I was going to say.
Well, let's talk about your tutorials because you've done a lot of space, and I think this year it's like forests.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, yeah, I did those two. I've been doing like multi-part series because I get in on one. I'm like, oh, this is just gonna be like a 30-minute tutorial, no big deal. And then I'm like, I realize that there's so much more depth, and I really like going deep on the tutorials. I don't like the shallow, like surface level stuff. I like to. It's an excuse for me to go in and research the crap out of something. So like with the forest stuff, I'm like, what are all the best forest scenes? Like, let's watch everybody else's tutorials first. Let's experiment. Let's do this, do that. And then, I even like contacted Joseph Bashara and the people, my heroes that I think are the best at this forest stuff. And I'm like, dude, my grass is pretty clumpy and I'm not getting the results that I want, and so he helped me with those settings a little bit. Or like Alex Ness, I'm like, I've got the volumetric God rays that are looking okay, but then, and like also just digging through the Octane Facebook group, there's always little nuggets there that I hit save link on, and like, I'm like, oh, right, it's the one parameter, like the phase, that really helps the God rays. So I kind of collect that information. I like to digest all of that and, re-vomit it out there for the community. But it always ends up being a lot more ambitious than I thought. So like for like an hour and a half long, two-parter, it takes me like a week to record, like research, record, maybe even a little bit longer sometimes. So it's like I like to do those really in-depth tutorials and not like constantly release them, but release them once a month or maybe like once every 2 months. And the amazing thing that happened is that Otoy is now officially like sponsoring me. So I'm, now also my time is freed up because I'm actually getting paid to make these tutorials, which is amazing. Like I super appreciate this from Otoy. I'm now an official Otoy evangelist, so you can make your Jesus puns, what have you. But yeah, so that frees up my schedule because I've got client work, and it's really hard to wedge these in. Like before, for the first, 10 or 12 tutorials, I was just doing it for exposure berries, and just, because it's fun to give back to the community. That's like how I learned was Video Copilot, Andrew Kramer, then Grayscale Gorilla, then, just like I absorb and learn through tutorials and experimentation, but I like to be lazy and just sit back and like let all that information wash over me, like develop a catalog of those things in my brain, and then go back to it later. When I've got a project, rather than trying to reinvent the wheel and start from scratch and tinker around, and that's too frustrating. I like to start from what are the best tutorials on this subject, let's watch them all, and then let's build off of that. Let's bash several tutorials together, and then like as I'm going, it's like, oh crap, I need jellyfish. Oh, let's watch Daniel Danielson's tutorial on jellyfish, and then that comes together. And so like,
I still don't believe that that's a real name. Danielson. The best way to learn is to teach. And that's what you're doing.
Yeah, that's super exciting for me. And like next, I think I'm gonna get into. So I've got a lot of plans. I want to do like a snow shader tutorial, like snowy mountains, and like showing how to combine scatter with displacement, how to cull tree lines so that they're not on the peaks of the mountains, and then mix several procedural noises in with that in the layer shader, which actually works with Octane, which I didn't know till recently. Stuff like that. And then I want to do like an underwater tutorial. I want to do like light tunnels, like what Frederic Duquette does, and kind of Beeple-ish, like using black body emissions, but in clever ways to create really interesting VJ type content. And like Instagram is such a, gold mine for this stuff. I'm like, oh, I'll just do like tutorials that are like, and it teaches me too, because like I often don't force myself to do daily renders or like, do that R&D, but I'm like, man, I really want to do something like Stuzor and figure out how that dude does his like scenes and makes these epic scales. So like if I research that and play around with it for a while and figure it out, then I can give that back to the community as a tutorial. And so it's like this, wealth of content just by looking through Instagram. And so yeah, all that's really fun. But I was going to say, like, for a major series that I want to do that I'm planning is like more on that digital DP stuff, where I'm doing more lighting and more camera moves. And so I really want to make that into my first like really in-depth, like 8-hour series. So I'm pretty excited about that. And, it forces me to really take the time to learn that stuff for myself. Like, I think I'm pretty good at camera movement and lighting, but I think I can get even further down that rabbit hole. And, like there's this old series by Hollywood Camera Work from like 2009, and it's like these weird previs figures, and they just kind of like float around and don't have any expressions, but that's like the point, because they look crappy, right? But And because they don't have expressions, all of the emotion and storytelling and the editing, the camera cutting, like what lens you're using, how the camera's moving. So the story is all told by that stuff rather than by the actors. So it's like taking the actors out of the equation and saying, here's a sick camera move where like if you've got a car coming down the road and rather than just panning with it, you have the camera cross first, like right in front of it, and it almost looks like it hits the camera. And then you whip pan with it afterwards. So it's like little tricks like that. But just a ton of them, So it's like that's a gold mine, and it's been discarded, So I want to take all that, like digest it and play around with that in prettier Octane scenes, and use that and basically teach that same kind of content again. Because like a lot of people are reaching for these like extremely, for me, difficult to learn technical things like Houdini and sims. Like I don't love sims. Like when I have to do an X particle sim like a bunch of different times, and like just change the look slightly and now it's and like tweak all these parameters, I get discouraged. I prefer to like play around as a cinematographer and play with composition, lighting, texturing. Like that's my jam. So if I'm that guy that makes the scene look pretty, then I'm happy. I don't need to be necessarily like dabbling super hardcore in the Houdini and all this other stuff when so many other people are getting into that. So I think like learning cinematic language and just still studying that, I think I can, that's where I'm like reaping the benefits and I feel like I'm seeing my work progress more, because we're storytellers. We're making films in our dinky computers, and it's really weird like that, and it's like vast too. So like I'd rather go down that rabbit hole is what I'm trying to say.
Awesome. Well, you're supposed to go interview Raid Zero now, but I think we're both really comfortable here in our Twinsies Render Things shirts. It's going to be really hard to get up. This is like the first time I've sat down all day. These shirts, Render Things, you can get these at Brograph.com, and you can find David at arievisuals.com, right? And we're going to attempt to stand up, and we'll squanch you later.